Hello and welcome to the We All Follow podcast. My name is Matt Fox. I'm your host. Today I am joined by three of our illustrious regular contributors, Ben, Nigel, and Sean. Great to have you guys back. We're going to jump two-footed into the format. Follow us on We All Follow Pod. And of course, jump in the Discord where you get super fun exclusives. But today, right now, we're going right into the moment of the week. Nigel, what's your moment of the week?
This could be pretty easy. It could either be
You get one.
No, it could be either Winery's double during the week, but I've got to go. The moment of the week by a long shot is the red card mayhem at the Amex. What's going on there? Referee, he's got the ball. Mug is white. He's got the ball. It's a throwing that way. He's got the ball. Walks over, and by the time he's walked over, Anthony Taylor's been in his ear saying, "Just give him a red card. It'll be funner." So he says, "Actually, no. I'm going to give you a red card. Give him a second yellow red card." Fabian Hertzler put 1 foot on the pitch. 1 foot on the pitch. Yeah, you're having a red card as well. Nuno obviously is just spitting feathers. He's gone, and he's like, "You're a cheat." Yeah, you can have a red card as well. So 3 red cards in a minute. After a referee had said, "Yeah, he's got the ball. I saw it was a bit of a hard tackle. He got the ball. It's throwing." So, wild. PGMOL, wild.
Yeah, it's the Premier League is all about them referees right now, and some of these decisions.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
It's been unfortunate. Well, Ben, since you're up next, what do you got for me?
I was gonna a more general thing than just Nwaneri, the Hale End stuff and the whole talk about Arteta not trusting the youth and all this stuff, and he basically just shut it all up within a week. Like you've had, well, if you go a little bit further back, Nwaneri played against Tottenham, and now you've got Louis Skelly with the funny thing with that yellow card before he'd even come on, and I think that probably, from Arteta's point of view, that probably made him want to bring him on, and then he came on and squared up to Haaland, who's double his size. And then what else as well? The game against Bolton was just great, seeing these guys that we all know that they've got that ability, but to actually see it and see how well they fit in. Like you look at Nwaneri, he looks like Odegaard on the pitch, like he's playing the same role. And then Nichols at right back, and 16-year-old keeper is like the youngest keeper probably ever in English football. Yeah, it's just great to see. And Louis Skelly as well. There's just some really impressive players coming through right now at Highland. So it's exciting that they are getting their opportunity. And I think that's going to be there for a while. It's before the issue was a few of the players didn't have their contracts were expiring, or they just weren't as good. You know, you had the guys we're talking about, like Patino, looks great at first. And then he went out on a few loans, didn't look all that. Didn't really progress, probably regressed, didn't look physically up to it. And yeah, he's older and at the end of his contract, you know, so it's very different now. But I'm glad to see they're getting their go.
It's been a fun one for the kids this week in the Carabao Cup. Sean, what do you got for your moment of the week?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little bit from the other side of that, obviously that game. But and I'm going to revisit this in either 2 months or 8 months, depending upon how good Dr. Kugat and the trip to Barcelona was. But, look, Rodri is a guy that's probably, top 3 for the Ballon d'Or this year, and they don't lose a lot of matches with him in the side. His record with him in the side is pretty ridiculous. So, him to go out for any period of time now, and they're talking, hey, we got players to step. No, you don't. You don't have somebody to step in, because when you look at the record with Rodri in the lineup and Rodri without of the lineup with Manchester City, it's completely different. So, I just think, and, De Bruyne's coming back, and all these guys are going to be able, no one's Rodri, and I think that's a massive, massive injury. And he's not young. So, and I know there's the magic sponge, Dr. Kruger. Oh, the trips to Barcelona. Oh, that stuff they talk about. But look, he's not coming back anytime before. If it's truly an ACL, he's not coming back anytime before 8 months. So basically, now they have to figure out until the transfer window minimum, what they're going to do without him. And I think it changes the whole dynamic of the title race. And look, the fact that they scored and all this stuff afterwards is whatever. But, after the game, obviously Arsenal has the upper hand, I think.
Yeah, so you guys took most of mine. I had a list because I go last and let you guys take the good ones. Rodri, the thing about Rodri with him talking for these last 6 months, maybe longer, about the amount of matches that are being played, about the intensity of the matches, and like we've said before on this show, the burden of that is put on the best players, right? It's not the guys that are playing for Ipswich and Southampton. No disrespect to those guys, but those are not the guys that are making it deep into the tournaments, right? Those are not the guys playing for the biggest countries that have the most at stake in all of these games, as well as in the league and across various European competitions. So for him to be the one that's been sounding this alarm, for him to be the one that's been rested most of the season up until this point, right? And with Pep knowing that he can't leave Rodri out of this game, and then for it to be a non-contact injury, which is universally known as your it's not good, right? Try not to cuss on this podcast. So all of those things together, it's a bad look. It's a bad look for the game, and he's one of the biggest players in the world, right? I think he has a good shot at winning the Ballon d'Or actually, based on his performances this last year. So it just really sucks. Like I want to beat Man City with their full complement of players because I don't want any excuses from their side about this happened or that happened when we win the league. So that was my first one. MLS, Miles Lewis Skelly getting that yellow before ever playing a Premier League minute. That was amazing, like classic Barclays, man. But my moment of the week was Kai running into Rodri in the first second of the game and just clattering him, putting the shoulder down. And, I think Kai he's had a tough start at Arsenal getting into the team. With the low confidence coming from Chelsea. But I think that what I've seen at least is Kai being one of the pillars of the team, even though he might not be the loudest or the most vocal. Like you saw at the end of last year, him bawling on the field when Arsenal didn't win the league. And what that told me was that he had the belief that we were going to win the league, right? And him being a leader within the dressing room and coming out, and nobody told him to do that. Nobody had to tell him to do that. But that was the first minute of the game, setting that intention. We're here to play. We're not going to get pushed over. We're not little brother anymore. So get ready for a game. So that was my moment of the week. Any other notable mentions from this week's matches?
Well, I was just going to ask the question you mentioned about Havertz, and now it's been kind of finalised that Mikel Arteta is the living embodiment of Voldemort, and he is a master of the dark arts. Which junior wizard would Havertz be seen to be underneath his thing? Is he a Draco Malfoy? Is he Ron? Is he Neville? I think he's more of a Neville, isn't he, Kai?
Odegaard's got to be Malfoy. He looks just like him.
Yeah.
Ben, I feel this is a question for Ben.
Oh, that's a tricky one. Because the thing with Havertz, he's got that thing about him where he's clever and he's cunning, but he does it in such a clumsy looking way. You know what I mean? When he said Neville, I'm thinking, maybe, maybe.
I know.
But, yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that Declan Rice is obviously Hermione Granger. That guy never shuts up, does he? He's always chatting.
He's always got something to say.
I mean, I was surprised. I was surprised that no one said the 94th minute Bruno Fernandes free kick from 45 yards out where he shot. I mean, if I was in the stadium last night, Old Trafford, and I saw that, I would have been throwing everything on that pitch. That was horrendous.
It's just at the point now. I mean, I know we'll probably get into it, but it's just the point now. Like, look, I have Cup season tickets, and like I was just like, here, take my tickets. I accidentally transferred one of my extra tickets to somebody that I transferred my ticket for last night, and then after the match, I was like, he's like, oh, you transfer too, and I was like, just keep it, man. I'm not going to watch this stuff. And then just excuses and all this stuff, and everyone's like all down now because they know it's inevitable. They're like, Southgate's coming and stuff like this. But today I guess maybe they kind of squashed that a little bit. But
yeah,
it's so bad. It just the problem is too, like you see, 7-0 last week, and you just see how Arsenal's playing, and obviously City and Liverpool, and some of these other teams. I mean, even Newcastle and Chelsea. And just watching this stuff, and this guy in third year is just terrible. So,
I can't remember who said it, but they made a point about how it's funny how it seems really suddenly that Chelsea have gone above Man United. Chelsea still, there's a lot of uncertainty, but how they're playing, they look there's a lot more there to work with, it seems, at least. And the players they've got in the depth as well, they've got so many players that they might do something more likely than Man United.
They did finish above them last year, and to be fair, Pochettino had got them playing decent at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Pochettino had Chelsea playing decent. I mean, it was only the game against Arsenal where they took a spanking. They was unbeaten after that. After we put 5 past them. So yeah, I mean,
they have talent too. I mean, they have like.
Yeah,
the next 8 games.
This happens when you spend $1.5 billion.
After if you buy 74 players, at some point you're probably going to find 11 that you could put out there that can play half decently. So no, you know what I think, obviously, and then they're in the Conference League, so they're going to be able to play some of these guys that don't get a chance to play, so they're not going to be crying as much about rotation because they're going to get extra games and stuff. So. And the other cups, so you're not going to have as much of a problem with rotation, I think, and people crying as maybe you did. So, yeah, I think they're a dangerous team.
The next 8 games, it'll be make or break for Man U. But anyway, I digress. That's the thing. If you look at their schedule for the next 8 games, Man United, trust me, I mean that's going to make or break Ten Hag.
I don't think he even gets to there. They got Spurs, Villa, Brentford, West Ham away, Chelsea, Leicester, Ipswich, Everton, Arsenal. I don't think he even gets to the next.
In the Champions League, but in the Europa League, they've also got.
They play Porto and Fenerbahce.
Porto, who got beat yesterday by, against 10 men.
Look, Porto might play up. The things with Porto, they might play up because it's a bigger team. I think because it was only Bodo Glimt, they probably underestimate them a bit. Whereas when they played Arsenal,
and that's a hard place to go to.
I don't think
they're a good team. Yeah, they're actually a good team.
I don't think he makes it to the next break. I don't think he makes it past. I don't think one of the next 2 breaks they make a change. That's just what I think. I think.
Maybe.
It's
What did you think about the game last week? Because looking at the statistics, like possession, the Palace game, the possession was in your favor.
They don't score. They a little bit unlucky. I thought they played really well, but then he makes 50. People used to complain last year because he never made any changes and wouldn't affect the game, and then he makes these changes, and then they're atrocious for like the last 20. Like just leave it. Like just try to get a winner. Just try. Just leave it. Nothing's wrong. Like you don't have to change for change's sake. Look, when you're up 7-0 against, in the EFL Cup, you could change Barnsley. You could make changes and everybody could play. And evens yesterday. Like who cares? Those still going to progress. But you have to. If it's 0-0 away and you're playing well, why switch stuff up? Just leave it. And I thought they did. I thought they played well, especially on the back of the game midweek. And then yesterday, look, I mean, it just if Onana doesn't cheat and Eriksen doesn't get the ball away, but maybe speaking of subs, he probably shouldn't have been out there at that point, even though he scored. But the whole thing happened. If they don't do that, they probably win the match, and it's not that big of a deal at this point. But they played well, but they don't get a result. And I think there was some positivity about that because it was changing. And then they go and do this midweek, and it's just like, man, like all the positivity that you get from those two matches, even though one was a draw and one was 7-0. Now you got Spurs on Sunday, who's wounded. Same thing, and that game. Who knows where that's going to go? Both these teams are all over the place, and then you got to go to Villa before the break. I mean, and look, I mean, could they lose both those? Yeah, I'm 100%. And now you're just everything you built all of a sudden has crumbled in 3 matches.
That's an away trip to Portugal as well. We've been there before. Away at Porto is a tough match, and those guys they could be in 20th place in the league, and a Premier League team comes and they play like freaking Henri France.
I have a quick story about this. I've been to games all over the place. So the first time I went to Porto away was with my Benfica people because we go to Portugal every year. So we go and we're actually just sitting in the stands. We're not they put the people up in a cage. So we're walking up and there's just a line. This is 2014. There's a line of about 70 police officers with submachine guns and shields walking as the Benfica fans are walking up. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? Because, I've been to PSG at that point and saw this, but you just don't kind of see it like that. And you're like, man, this is crazy. And then they got the flares going. It's a tough place to play, Porto. And it's, that once again, the result the other day doesn't matter for Porto. I think they're going to have a problem in that game. I think he needs to, especially because you got Spurs and Villa in between. How do you rotate? What do you do? If you don't get the mix right here in the next 3 games. And I think once again, I think he's got to know he's in a little bit of trouble. Unless he's, I would think he does. So, maybe he's got to make some changes with that in mind, or maybe he doesn't maybe he says, I'm putting my strongest lineup as much as possible out here in the next 3 matches. But it's a tough spot.
It'll be interesting as well because Porto, their striker they got that Chelsea were trying to get, Samu Omorodion, he's really doing well right now. Very physical, big guy. And I'm just thinking him against Lisandro Martinez.
Yeah.
That will be interesting.
Or Maguire after he got skinned yesterday for that goal.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to continue make this take over all the chat, but what we're going to say, because I'm in a few Man United group chats as well, and so someone said, oh yeah, well, we're really good against Palace and really good against Barnsley, and I said, well, from an outsider, I do agree Man United have looked a little bit better this year, but I just said I need to throw you some caveats in, really, is that you probably could have got beat by Fulham on the first day of the season, and Fulham probably deserved a draw. Second game of the season, you probably should have got a draw at Brighton, but they got beat, unfortunately, because of that Xerxes disallowed goal. So Man U should have got some points there, and they didn't. So yeah, that swings and roundabouts with Fulham game. Manhandled by Liverpool, which was that was bad. But then they come back, and that game against Southampton, they could have been 1-0 down after 20 minutes. That penalty, Cameron Archer should never have took that. That was Brereton Diaz's penalty all day long. Should have. Now, if he scores that, Southampton are flying. And that game takes a completely different trajectory. Southampton were all over Man United up to that point. And as soon as that penalty missed, they lost a bit of confidence. Yep. Man U straight away and goal. So that could have been a bit different. So people said, oh yeah, but we smashed Southampton. Well, it might have been 3-0, but for the good first quarter of that game, you were second best. Then they played Barnsley. I mean, Barnsley have been struggling in League One. So, and you put for a bloke who complained about games and rotating his squad, he put his first team out in that game. That was very much a first team against Barnsley.
Yep.
Okay. Then they go to Palace, and I said, and they went, yeah, but we were a better team at Palace, should have won. I said, well, the problem what I've got with this is, and I tried saying it, is Oliver Glasner is completely changing how Crystal Palace play. They've got a completely new style of football, new tactics, and he's got new players doing it. think about it, if you look at that team now, there's 4 or 5 different players to what played in it last season. So these are new players learning a new system. So that was a Palace team what are still getting to grips with a new system against Man U, who should have had a system for 2.5 years. Palace could have easily won that game. Eze had 2 clear chances what he should have bagged. Yes, Man United probably should have scored as well, but Eze, the one from 8 yard out, what he put wide, I mean, that was in it. He's won the first half. So, and then you go into last night, and I got it on the back burner because I was watching Arsenal. But the bits what I've watched some highlights of it, and it's just the same problems all over and over again. A guy picks up a ball, can run straight through midfield because the midfield's just flooded elsewhere. What I've put it on my X, I found Lisandro Martinez is halfway in the 20 half. He's halfway in their half. The second player, what goes towards the right back when he's running is Martinez. He's 30 yards in front of Maguire. Harry Maguire then dives in at the halfway line, and Martinez runs into Maguire while Maguire's on the floor. Watch it back the clip. Martinez runs into Maguire. So you've got a bloke who's 15 yards running at pace inside the Man United half, and both your centre backs are doing like a I don't know, some kind of like buffoonery, like comedy thing. Like when like Home Alone, like Joe Pesci and thinking that's what they're like, isn't it? Joe Pesci, Martinez and Maguire, yeah. They're like falling over each other as though they're at the bottom of an icy staircase. You know what I mean? I'm like, what is going on here? And then when Eriksen turns inside, you get the ball, you never turn inside. You always go away from goal. He goes inside, loses the ball. And when Lammers actually scores, Maguire and Martinez are still 25 yards out.
Yep.
And it's constant. It happens every game. That's just midfield just obliterates. But
who's the next manager?
Listen, one of my close friends has said it for since March that it would be Gareth Southgate. Before that, it was Potter who we were looking at, and they did look at Potter. But
I had to turn my camera off while I punched air.
It was Potter's holding out for England, but apparently England have been given a warm response to Jurgen Klopp. So I don't know about that, but that's what he said.
I still think it wouldn't happen now though. This is the only thing, but Amorim at Sporting is a manager that a good sized team should build. It's kind of like what Arteta, Arsenal, Motta at Juventus. Just give it to him for a long period of time. There's a few teams that have missed out, but he wouldn't move now because he's locked in and he loves that team. So, but yeah, I don't see either of them doing too well, to be honest. I get the Potter thing because they've got they've got like Dan Ashworth and people like that. So there's a bit of a connection there, but still.
Dan Ashworth took Southgate into the England so.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, Dan Ashworth.
I just don't think Southgate's a manager. Yeah. I think he's like a in the board type personality, and he's a good communicator and people manager, but not tactician, not Premier League tactician. Like I don't think it would be. Yeah. But do it. I would love it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like what is the let's look. What is it that Man United need, right? Like they have these big personalities and big contracts, and they need some level of base organization, right? Because say what you want. Let me finish real quick. Say what you want about Ten Hag. I think that none of us can see what his playing style is. Right? At least with Southgate, you're getting a base playing style, whether you like it or not, whether it's offensive or not, whether it's that he's gonna come in and set up a solid defense, right? And then hopefully you can get some creativity coming from the players themselves to express themselves. But at least you're not gonna be shipping goals 7 to Liverpool, 3 to Liverpool every week. At least that gives you a chance.
You see, I actually think that Southgate is more pliable than what you actually believe, and as bad a rep as he's got, the whole point of Man United this year, and it's come from Barada, Ashworth, and Wilcox, is that they wanted Ten Hag to play a certain style, what they're defining, and they bought players to fit this style. I actually think Southgate and Potter are the two people who would go into a job and do what they're told. I think Southgate is one of them who will say, okay, you want me to do this? I'll implement it. And he's that type of communicator. So one thing, the reason why, one of the big things why Brailsford likes Southgate, and Brailsford is very fond of Southgate, and this comes from them, was it's his communication and how professional he is coming across, and how he creates a culture, and how, if you look at the England squads, I mean, they were all bought into him. No matter how bad the fans thought he were, them players were playing for him. They were playing for him, and they were running through walls for him, because he's got this way of getting all the players to feel like they're important, and everyone's playing a part, no matter if you're on the bench or not. Apart from Anthony Gordon, who seems to he was cast aside, weren't he, which was poor. But I think that's one of the big reasons why you've got Potter and Southgate, and why when England are looking for a replacement for Southgate, they were trying to stay with that person, and with the type of person who can keep that culture going and is a good communicator and doesn't antagonise people with his words and stuff. And last season there was 3 or 4 occasions where Ten Hag said, I mean, we're talking like March, April, May time, and he was still talking about the offside goal at Arsenal in his press conferences. And he did it about 3 or 4 times. And I think the last time he did it, apparently there was a big blow up about that behind the scenes, and people saying, you need to stop making excuses. You need to stop making excuses. You just got to communicate correctly. And that's why, I mean, I think Southgate would be a good fit for Man U? Professionally, from an optics point, it looks awful. But from a backroom staff type of thing, I think it might give them a little bit of a bridge for 2 years, maybe, before 2 or 3 years before we bring someone else in. But are they prepared to build for 2 or 3 years with Southgate and then get someone else? I don't know. But you mentioned Ruben Amorim, Ben. I actually think he'll go to PSG. I think he's Luis Enrique's person to go from him. I think he's nailed on to PSG, Amorim, now. If he didn't come to the Premier League, if he didn't come to the Premier League, that's where I'd see him go.
Maybe, yeah. Because they've got a big link with Portuguese football. They've got the George Mendes connection. Yeah, that makes sense, to be fair. The only reason I mentioned him is just because his style is very like transition heavy, and I feel like when you look at how you think of a typical Man United team, they've got a lot of that, and PSG do as well, so that would suit them as well.
Yeah, but yeah, that's that's me done.
I hear what you're saying, Nigel. I think that the thing about being an international manager is you only get the players for so often, right? So how can you come in? These guys are coming in from their clubs. You can't come in and be a dickhead, right? Like, that's not going to work. Nobody's going to come if nobody's going to ask to be selected if you're a jerk. And I mean, to a certain extent, the same thing works at the club, right? Like, you can see the managers like Conte, the Contes of the world, they have a short shelf life because there's only so much that a man will accept being yelled at before people start to revolt, especially if the results aren't there. I think they need stability, right? And I think they need a set way of playing that, even if it's not the best, even if it's not going to win a title, that can get consistent results. And I think that at this point, the biggest thing is getting Man U back into the Champions League, getting the results of placing 4th or 5th in the league several years in a row with consistency. And then from there, like you said, they can go on and potentially get that next level of manager. Sean?
Yeah, look, I mean, Omar Barada came out today and set a target of 2028 to win the Premier League. I think, that gives you a little bit of time. I mean, look, people are like, hey, why don't you just say we want to win it now? And I'm just like, what's like, do you not watch? Like, are you a fan? Do you not watch them play? There's nowhere near the title. They do. Look, their academy has good players coming through. If any of them are as close to some of these, the Mainu and some of these guys that have stepped up in their teenage years and can play, in the next 3 or 4 years, I think There's a really good base there. They still need to get rid of a lot of players. So, look, if you could find someone like Nigel said to bridge this gap and get them back moving positive. Look, just go. I'd rather them lose 4-3 every minute. Just go attack. Like, it's just the way they play. Sometimes it's just terrible. Just go attack and score goals. I don't care if you give up goals if you're going to score 3 goals a game. If you lose 4-3, you lose 4. Like that Chelsea match last year when they lost 4-3. It's like almost after that they like went back into the shell and just like, look, it happens. You're up 3-2. Bad penalty and just bad luck. It just happens. But that's much better. And I think when you see, kind of how Arsenal's built, Newcastle, some of these other teams, the attacking style, Chelsea a little bit more this year. People enjoy that more. And I think they'd be able to deal with it more. But once again, stabilize, go forward. But Ten Hag's not going to be the guy, down the line.
So you're saying that they should go full Unai?
They should go what?
Full Unai.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, yeah. Go get Unai Emery. How about that? That would be great. Let's go.
I think the next manager will be British. I think it'll be either Southgate, McKenna, or Michael Carrick. But it depends how Carrick performs this year at Middlesbrough. I think he's served it. Yeah, I think it'll be one of them.
Yeah, he was good when he was in charge for that 3 matches. I thought he did pretty well there. So, I think just someone that gets the club, someone that gets the academy, all of that stuff. You got to be. McKenna would be good, I think, too.
But like I said another Man U GC. What I didn't understand is Ten Hag kind of fell upon a successful way of playing. In that FA Cup final, they didn't sit back and park the bus against Man City. They played in like a low mid block and just killed the spaces. They stopped the spaces what Man City like to play in. It was very, very similar to what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer used to do. And then they broke at pace and broke well. But they didn't park the bus. They still pressed. It was like a 3-quarter press against Man City, but defending the half spaces as well in the channels. And then he just went away from it. He's abandoned it. He used it in 2 games against Man City in the cup final in the Community Shield, and he's just abandoned it, even though it worked against the best team in the country. I'm done on Man U.
The only other thing I was going to say on this is the biggest thing they need to replace, or if Ten Hag doesn't do that, they need to get, which is why I think McKenna might actually be quite good, is managing the spaces in defence, like between each players. That's why the build-up so bad. There's too much of a big space between in the midfield, and you talk about like just go and attack and being more direct, being attacking, but that's the issue. They can't properly build up because of these players being further apart. So you look at Ipswich, and even in that first game against Liverpool, you think of the tools that he has there, McKenna, compared to Liverpool, and they were defending in their box really well. As soon as they got the ball, quick passes, and they're down in the other half before you can remember. Now imagine if that was like Rashford, Diallo, Garnacho, Bruno Fernandes, whoever, those type of guys. You could see him finishing a few more of those chances. So, yeah, for me, the manager's always going to hold them back. And, yeah.
Well, let's put a pin in Man U for now. The big match of the week was Man City versus Arsenal, and we had a glorious 46 minutes worth of football. Sean, as a proverbial neutral in this match, what did you think of the first 45 minutes? Because obviously we all know what happened after that. But what I want to focus on was the good part of the game, where it was back and forth. And what were your takeaways from that?
Yeah, look, Arsenal went head to head. I mean, and Arsenal's shown over the last two and a half years here that, they're every bit the equal of Manchester City. They're this close. City's just a little bit deeper and, gotten a little bit more luck down the stretch. They never lose down the stretch. But I thought Arsenal played really well. The red card was, the referees love to. Once again, I'm convinced they like to do this stuff so it's the talking point of the world. but that's another story. Look, Arsenal is just. I think I picked Arsenal to win the title. Came on here and did it in the before the season. I think the way that result played out, and when you see the next 5 or 6 weeks of matches for both teams now, and City's got a pretty tough run here, without maybe the first, second, third place Ballon d'Or guy now out. Um, I think if Arteta is probably saying right now, look, I mean, we had him. It took him till we played 90. We played 48 minutes or 40, whatever, 52 minutes. Down a man there, and nearly hung on. We got a point. It's a good point. But I think Arsenal is the one that comes out of that game probably thinking, man, we should have had all 3 points. And they're probably a little bit disappointed they didn't get it. And Manchester City is probably like, we got lucky. We got a little bit lucky, even though we played up a man. And I think that's where the thing has changed now. I think it would have been the other way around maybe the last 2 years, and it's not like that now. And I just think this is going to be, Arsenal has to kick on now. That's the thing, though. Like, Arsenal's got, I would expect them to go out and they play Leicester, thump Leicester this weekend, while City's going to maybe struggle with Newcastle. And then you kind of see how the psychology of the whole thing changes. But I would think Arsenal probably comes out of it with a lot more positive. And just from like the Manchester United fans and stuff, I mean, everybody was kind of upset that they lost that match. So see these guys, I think they're upset about it as well. But I think Arsenal is the team that comes out of it now, and I think they're the favorites here to win the title, obviously.
Nigel, what you got for me? Man City, Arsenal, 2. Draw, 2-2.
I mean, my head was hot for 3 days. My head's been hot for 3 days because I still don't know whether I accept a draw and think that's great playing with 10 men for so long, or if I'm gutted that we're 30 seconds away from getting 3 points. I'm still. I'm happy that we didn't lose. We didn't lose a game. I'm gutted that we didn't get all 3 points. That's the worst bit. But yeah, and from a player psychological point of view, are we going to be buoyant that they didn't beat us? We managed to hold out, but then are we going to be gutted that they were 30 seconds away from glory? It's a definitely something where Mikel, especially Carlos Cuesta, who's good with the mind psychology, where you've got to build them back up and say, look, that was good, that was hard fought. Anyone else done that, they'd have conceded 4 or 5 goals. We nearly did it, but we still didn't get beat. I think that's it. That's a big thing. But yeah, I mean, the bit what's come out of it was just all this ridiculous stuff about dark arts, part of the bus. It was, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? The best team in Europe went to Man City, didn't play 40. They didn't have 10 men. The best team in Europe last season went to City, played for 94 minutes with 11 versus 11 and parked the bus from minute 1. Did anyone say at Real Madrid with dark arting when they'd got players going down with cramp in 71st minute? Was anyone complaining that they just sat back or they had a shot? No, everyone's saying, fuck at Madrid. Oh. Mourinho style Madrid, Tony Pulis, it's Carlo Aladici. Yeah, not Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, it just goes to show how rattled Arsenal have got the entire football community, especially the ex-pros who were mostly Man United and Liverpool. They're rattled because they know that Mikel Arteta, who they've belittled him for years. Oh, he's just Pep's protege and stuff like that, and yeah, and he's took Arsenal as far as he can. Blah blah. They're rattled because he has turned Arsenal into a team of absolute mentality monsters, where I think City know. The amount of City players who've come out post-match, interviews, bleating, whining, crying, well, this, that. I mean, Bernardo Silva, he should go to Idaho. Bernardo Silva, this one Sean should have been here for this. He should go to Idaho, because Idaho has got big of everything, haven't they? They've got the big potato and stuff like that in Idaho. They could have a big baby, and it's just a giant Bernardo Silva in Idaho. Yeah, because that guy has cried and cried and cried for the last 3 days. And the last thing on this, Steve Madley, journalist in The Athletic, wrote a piece about the dark arts, in which he said that Gabriel Martinelli's cross was deflected out to Ricardo Calafiori for him to score. No, he didn't. He played a 6-yard pass, laid it back to him. He said that Havertz clattered Rodri after 1 minute because he was targeting him. No. Rodri steps to the side, straight into Havertz's way, and you see that. And then, even worse, he said that Thomas Partey followed Havertz's lead and ran into, bullied into Rodri.
Flattered, I believe was the word.
Clattered into him, where he kicked him in the upper part of his leg, and this has caused Rodri's ACL. I've never known a journalist, but it's supposed to be a good journalist for Wolves, and The Athletic published that piece without fact checking it, and it was complete fabrication. The guy had not watched the game, and he'd not even watched the incidents back. But then to actually put it out there and publish it, and it's still on there, it's still on The Athletic now. And they made a few editorials to it. They changed a few bits. Didn't put an editor's note, but they changed it or updated it.
Yeah, they sneak edited it. I think the biggest thing about all of the media from this weekend was that it's just so disingenuous. And as a person who's on the spectrum, like, I value honesty, right, and straightforwardness. And when you see these guys coming on and saying stuff that I know they don't believe, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, is it just about views? Is that just what our world has become, where you don't ever show your true opinion because it's just about views? Because these guys talking about, I can guarantee you that if we went through every single group chat of any fan base that watches this sport over the last year, I can guarantee you that there have been no mentions of delaying the restart. Nobody has been complaining about delaying the restart. That's not a topic of conversation. Nobody talks about this. So now all of a sudden, the PGMOL finds this obscure rule that we're going to start enforcing arbitrarily on certain teams. Like, it's not part of football. Football is about 11 players on each side and seeing who has the best skill to come and win the game. It's not about this petty stupidness. Like, billions of people tuned in to watch the game. They got 45 minutes of amazing football for it to be ruined. No, I want to know how many people shut off the game at halftime. I want to see the first half viewer stats versus the second. Because you know who's losing? Advertisers. The companies that are paying millions and billions of dollars to have their products advertised. When you have all these people switching off, that's bad for business. And if it's not going to be the Premier League teams that come and stand up to this foolishness, then it's going to be the people with the money, which is the advertisers and the fans. We can't have this. It's not football. This is not what any of us rocked up to watch. Leo Trossard get a second yellow in the more than extra stoppage time. If you watch any of the clips, it was so loud in the stadium at that point. Everybody's cheering for the half to be over. There's a foul. Within a split second, he kicks the ball. It's not even enough time for your brain to process that the whistle went off. But again, it all goes back to nobody cares about delaying the restart. That's not something that anybody's asking for. So why are we focused on it? Like, yeah, it's in the rule book. Sure, there's a lot of obscure rules in the rule book. Isn't there a rule about the goalkeeper holding the ball when they collect the ball? We don't see that rule being enforced when the goalkeeper holds the ball, and my team's as guilty of it as anybody. But it's the point is like, why are we picking these obscure rules that nobody cares about, that nobody's complaining about, to make an example out of stuff? It's just it's denigrating the game. And then for these pundits to come up and go, well, the letter of the law, the fuck the letter of the law. You've never cared about the letter of the law in any of these other situations. Since when have you don't even know half the rules. But now they pick out this obscure rule and the letter of the law. The biggest part of the referee is discretion. That's the biggest part of being a referee, is discretion, is knowing the game, is feeling the game, making sure that nobody gets hurt, right? You have Lisandro Martinez doing his best impression of the Crystal Palace Eagle, jumping in literally with his arms outstretched, 2 feet up, studs in, and no reaction. That's okay. That's what we're allowing. But God forbid you kick the ball away, then you have to get sent off.
I'll tell you,
ridiculous.
Yeah, but Matt, I'll tell you what's never enforced, and it should have been, because it was one of the main directives of this year and last season, I think, was players surrounding the referee. It's supposed to be captain only. There was 5 occasions on the Sunday where Man City had got at least 4 players around the referee. At least.
That's the thing, is that it's Nigel, do I care about surrounding the referee? I don't.
No,
I really
I'm
don't.
not bothered.
I don't, like, none of us care about these things. It's the Premier League, the PGMOL, picks some random obscure rule. It's like they have, the circle things that spin and it has different names on it, and you spin it and it lands on something. Like, they pick 20 obscure rules, they spin the wheel, and then that's what they decide to focus on for the year. And why don't you guys fix VAR? Why don't you fix this issue where you have players who are doing violent acts, right? Like, legitimately violent stuff, whether it's Bruno Guimaraes hitting Jorginho last year, whether it's Lisandro Martinez jumping in 2-footed like an eagle. Like, there's even yellow cards that I think need to be upgraded to reds, right? Like Kai Havertz, I've talked about this. Kai Havertz at Newcastle last year, because I don't want to be the guy who's only saying when it happens against my team, right? There's times when I think Kai Havertz could have been sent off at the Newcastle game last year, but that's VAR being incompetent. Right? There's so many cases where we see the Onana thing with Wolves last year at the beginning of the year, right? There's all these examples where VAR could actually do its job, right? Why don't we focus on fixing VAR instead of delaying the restart? Like, nobody's asking for this. Nobody's asked for it. And it's ruining what was going to be a great match, what was going to be a classic. It's just so frustrating to me, and to have these guys come on and say it's the letter of the law. It's like the same face that what's his name made when giving Rice the yellow card. Oh, I don't have a choice. Like, come on, bro. Like, you have a choice. We all have a choice. Your organization is choosing to enforce these rules that nobody cares about, and it's ruining what could have been one of the greatest matches of the season. Ben, sorry.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I can't agree more with some of this stuff. Like, I'm just fed up of it. Like, fed up of talking about referees and stuff that's just so blatantly obvious to us that when we're watching a game. And like you said, there's some of the things that they choose to address with the rules. Start changing rules for things that were perfectly fine, but there's the stuff that's broken. They just ignore it, and then each year the list of things that is broken just keeps growing. And more, we're talking about referees and the decisions. Like the stuff with Trossard, I was just like, firstly, the him clattering in with Bernardo Silva. To me, when you look at that and you look at how Haaland clattered into Saliba and then Partey as well, got nothing for either of those. There was some places that said the initial reason for the yellow was that, and if that was the case, Haaland didn't get a yellow for either. So there's already
that was the thing from the beginning, that they couldn't get their story straight.
Exactly, they changed it, and then when they changed it, it was about delaying the restart. And I think Someone mentioned something. I was like, this is a possibility. They said because they can't review a yellow, they've given the yellow, so they have to change the reason for the yellow. So that's why they went to delaying the restart because he kicked the ball away. But if you think, one, it's loud, you might not have heard it, and you're focused as well. You've got to think sometimes they're so focused in that moment. He's seen Martinelli running down the wing, and it's the last minute of added time. You're already one goal up. You're thinking, oh, you get another one. Goes to play the long ball, and he's not thinking about the fact that the referee's he's probably not even clocked it. Your brain takes a bit longer. And someone found from the moment the whistle was blown to when he kicked the ball was less than a second anyways. You know, how as a footballer, when you're already in the momentum of your legs swinging, are you meant to completely stop that and then play to the whistle or whatever? It's just stupid to me because the last one with Rice, the reason was because he kicked it off the pitch. This didn't go off the pitch, and it was in even less time. Like it's annoying because when I look at that game, we played so well. I'm really happy with the performance. There's parts that I didn't like, but generally happy with the performance. Really annoyed about the result because I feel like we were hard done by, and there's moments with how we set up defensively in the first half, and then also the lack of outlet in the second half, which is obviously down to being a man down. But we have to find another way because if we got one or two set pieces in that second half, corners in that second half, we could have got a third and gone on to win that. The only thing that was my annoyance at the beginning was the line was high. It seemed to me like City were trying to allow us to have the ball to make us come out more, which then meant Haaland had more space. And so Savio, whatever, he was pulling Calafiori around, which then meant there was that massive space there. And to me, I just looked at that, right? And there's Partey was like unsure whether to follow Bernardo Silva or to come inside. For me, you have to stop that ball to Haaland because he's the only. There's one player in the world that is almost guaranteed to finish that exact chance, and it's Haaland. So that was annoying to me, and I was like, it's the one thing I would try to avoid. But yeah, just generally with this stuff, though, like you guys were saying at the beginning, it seems like when we do something that works, the media cover it everywhere. You think about set pieces, it was all about, Arsenal were doing this dark art stuff and Ben White pulling this player's shirt, and it was over-analysing, Arsenal set pieces, it's a big thing for them. This is how you stop them, and then when we're playing, it was just every little thing like that we do well at. It's how can we stop them? When City were unstoppable, it was you can't beat City, you can't plan for them, they're unstoppable and all this. It's just praise. Whereas with Arsenal, it's like, no, they're doing stuff wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to be this physical. They shouldn't be allowed to waste time like everyone does. When Newcastle, remember that 0-0 against Newcastle? And no one said a thing about
58 minutes ball in play.
58. It was less than that. It was less than that. It was 41 minutes or something like that. It was stupid.
Yeah,
I was there.
Less than half. That game. It was the most frustrating game to me, and they did it another time as well, but that one in particular was bad, and the media weren't saying much about that at all. And now they're obsessing over it when it's Arsenal and they're down to 10 men against City and managed to hold them to not lose. But yeah, that aside, I said to someone the other day, I was like, those two cards aside, right, we probably wouldn't have conceded that second goal in both the first goal against Brighton and the second one against City. If that was the case, you'd have 5 out of 5 wins, only 1 goal conceded, which is mental. And I'm not saying that we can't rewrite history or whatever, but that's a very real possibility there. So it's a good start to the season is all I'm going to try to focus on.
And when you go back to strength of schedule, Ben, you look at strength of schedule. Arsenal have had. I tweet this out every Monday after the game week, or Tuesday if there's a Monday night game, and I said that Arsenal have had the second hardest run of games for the first 5. The hardest being West Ham, but they have had the hardest away fixtures.
Yeah.
Brentford, I think, have the third hardest schedule and second hardest away schedule, whereas Liverpool have had the easiest overall schedule and the second easiest away schedule behind Man United. So it just goes to show, if they'd have got 5 out of 5 by keeping 11 players on the pitch, not forgiving a referee, and only conceded 1 goal, having gone away to Villa, away to Tottenham, away to City, would be stupid.
Yeah, it would. With that start as well, and considering that, I'm just trying to check. I think it was 4.
It's already good.
No, it was 3. It was 3 away in a row. I thought it was 4 for a minute, but then there's in between. There's a Brighton one, and then it was Villa away. So Villa away was a tough game. Tottenham away, always going to be tough. Atalanta away, in between that and City, it's a ridiculous run. That so to come out with that being unbeaten, you will take it, you know.
I think from the beginning, I was always going to take 11 points out of 15 out of those first 5 Premier League games, right? They didn't come exactly in the way that we thought they might. You know, we got the win at Spurs. We got the draw with Brighton. We played 20% of the minutes with 10 players, right? So to come out of that whole situation in the position that we're in, I'll totally take that. Taking points off of City at their place is always going to be the goal, right? Last year we got 4 points out of 6 from City and Liverpool. We didn't win any points from Villa, right? And now we've already have 3 from them. So we're improving our results in that way. Sean, last thoughts on the City Arsenal game. I know you heard my rant about delaying, everybody caring so much about delaying the restart.
You know, I think it goes back. I think I've been talking about this a little bit about the referees. You know, when you talk about, you know, you compare American sports, and, you know, I think baseball and, you know, hockey and basketball, I think they've gotten this right with, you know, the reviews and everything. You know, the only 2 sports being, you know, that I can kind of see that have these constant issues with referees week in and week out is the NFL here, even though they have replay and stuff like that, and the Premier League, right? Both of these 2 things are these massive, massive entities. They're the biggest in the world. The Premier League, obviously, and the NFL. And they kind of have built this whole thing with this media surrounding it, and the media builds it up, and it's part of the engine of the thing. And the biggest match of the year, you know, everyone's anticipating, and it's basically killed 50 minutes in, and you got to sit there and watch, you know, a training exercise, 28 shots to nil in the second half, and, you know, 11v10. And, you know, it becomes about the referees, and, you know, I think the Premier League loves all that stuff. But, you know, once again, I just think Arsenal comes out of this with a lot more credit than City does. And I'm just 1 week. And I've said this multiple times. I mean, you've seen the kind of the quality, and we you know, we talk about, you know, Clattenburg and, you know, Howard Webb and all these guys that have retired, and, you know, and then, you know, down to Mike Dean and everything. These people are gone, and everyone kind of busted their balls when they were there. And now, you know, you have these new referees that are in, and they've been coming in, and they're just not as good. And I just don't think they can control the games as much. So I just want to watch the games and not have to watch the referees every week.
Yeah, I think that's everybody, right? We want the players to be the focus. We want the coaches. We don't care if they're not in their technical area. We don't care if the guy kicks the ball away. Like, that's not, nobody's asking that to be policed, right? And we just want to watch the game. And we want to watch good games. We have some of the best players in the world in our league. It's the most competitive league, and it should be held to a higher standard of refereeing. And I think that's the thing that's frustrating.
I don't need it to be the WWE at this point.
No, we don't need it to be 1998 Barclays man, but you know, it's okay. We have a couple big games coming up this week. We have Newcastle hosting City. We have Spurs heading up to Old Trafford. I've heard that there's somebody on the podcast that wants to make some predictions. Nigel, what do you got for me?
I think we should all do a quick prediction, but I'm just going to. All I'm going to say is, I think Spurs will get a result at Man United. I don't know if they get a win, but I think that there'll be goals 2-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-1, 3-2 maybe for Spurs. I think Spurs will get a win out of the two games, two teams if there is one. I actually think Newcastle will get a result against City. I think Newcastle will either draw or win at St James's. I think.
Is De Bruyne still out?
Pardon?
Is Kevin De Bruyne going to be back?
Unsure. We're unsure about De Bruyne. I just think Isaac's gonna have a bit of fun. Isaac, Barnes, and Gordon are gonna have a bit of fun, and Sandro Tonali. I feel it. I feel him. I feel Newcastle the weekend, and I mean, just run down. I think Arsenal don't concede against Leicester. I think Brentford are going to beat West Ham. I think Chelsea and Brighton will be a draw. I think Palace will lose at Everton. I think Everton will get the first win. I think Fulham will get a win at Forest. I think Liverpool win at Wolves. And I think Gary O'Neill gets a sack after that game. I think Villa will go away and win at Ipswich. And I think in the Harry Redknapp derby, I think it'll be 1-1. Bournemouth Southampton. There we go.
Quick fire Nigel predictions. I do think that Newcastle will be able to get a result. City coming off of missing Rodri, it's going to be a bumpy road for them, especially at the beginning as they adjust to life without Rodri for the foreseeable future. In the past they've been able to chop and change and quickly rotate that, but with De Bruyne potentially being out, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a little bit. I think they will steady the ship. But it's not the ideal fixture to be coming into right off the back of a big Rodri injury. Other notable games, I actually think Chelsea will beat Brighton. Chelsea have been playing pretty well recently. I'm interested to see the Everton Palace game, honestly. I think that'll be a fun one. Wolves are going to get walloped by Liverpool. Villa will have an easy run out this week, and then up at Old Trafford, the thing about Eric Ten Hag is that he manages to come up with these like half decent game plans for the big games. Like you saw it last year when they went away to Liverpool, they out of nowhere they came up with that draw and played really well and compact. So I'm curious. The thing about Spurs is that they're always available to have goals scored running in behind, which I think is on the strength of Man U. So I could see Spurs having more of the ball, having more shots. But again, like we saw in the last couple of weeks, they have a tendency to take shots from deeper that have less of a chance of going in. So I do think that Man United have a good chance to get a win at home. Old Trafford's a hard place to go. Ben, any thoughts on this week's games?
Yeah, I'd say with Newcastle, I'm not sure. They didn't play too well last week against Fulham, but at the same time, they're at home, which does make a massive difference for Newcastle. Probably one of the main teams it does. So just because of how they were last week, I'll just go with a draw. But they've always got it in them in a big game at home to step up and get a win. So, but have to wait and see, because players like Isaac haven't looked as good this season. But if he can step it up in this game, which he likes to do with the big games, then who knows? But I'd say draw with that one. I think with Arsenal, I can imagine not conceding, getting a good few goals. I think this will be the highest from an Arsenal point of view goal scoring from the attack in the league this season. So it's not anything special. I think they've only scored 2 max, I think, so far. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, so I think it could be 3 or 4. Leicester haven't looked the best at all. And the fact that they brought a double pivot of Ollie Skipp and Harry Winks into the Premier League in 2024. Yeah, Jordan Ayew on the wing. Like, I'm not sure about what's going on there, but yeah. Anyways, Brentford West Ham. I think this is an interesting one, because I think West Ham's manager. I said before, I love the signings, don't like the manager, and this could be a make or break thing. I think Brentford will win, but if they get a big win here, like a 3-0 or something, and West Ham are terrible, then he could be gone soon, Lopetegui. Chelsea, I think, will beat Brighton. Brighton will score. Chelsea's defence not the best, but it could be a high scoring win for Chelsea. Everton Palace, I'm struggling with. I'll be honest. I didn't think Palace were too good against Man United. The keeper was great, by the way. I forgot to mention earlier, Henderson. He was really good against Man United. He kept them in the game. I had him in my fantasy team, so I was waiting for him to get the next. Each 3 saves you get 1 point. So I was like, he was on like 7 or 8, and I was like, go on, make one more save. I think Palace will get a win here. Nketiah and Eze probably getting involved in the goals. Fulham been unbeaten since Man United, and they've actually looked really exciting. But again, they're one of those. Fulham and Forest are those type of teams where Fulham are better at home and so are Forest. So the fact that it's Fulham are away, I'm not sure, because Forest is.
Well, without the manager, is the manager going to be
Of
suspended
course,
for?
of course, yeah, of course.
And did Gibbs White serve his suspension? Did Forrest play midweek or no?
I don't think so. No, they
So
didn't.
Gibbs White will be suspended for this game, as well as Nuno.
Yeah, okay. If that's the case, then Fulham for me, because Hayland FC been doing great. So Iwobi getting assists, Smith Rowe and Nelson both scoring. It was great to see these guys shining. So I think they'll do well against Forest. Liverpool absolutely slap up Wolves. I'll be surprised if it was any other way. I'm probably going to captain Salah in my fantasy team. So I actually kind of, is that always that thing, right? You have that where you kind of hope that they do well for your fantasy team, but you also don't want them to do well. So in an ideal world, it's 5-5. Salah scores all 5 goals, and then a last-minute winner from João Gomez and Wolves win. That would be great. But Ipswich. I'm gonna go with an Ipswich win just for the bants. Tottenham beat Man United 3-2, and Bournemouth Southampton 2-2.
All right, with a hard stop, Sean. 2 words. Score of the Man United Spurs game.
3-2 Spurs. I think Chelsea Brighton also is the best game of the weekend. I think that has the possibility to be 5-5.
Yeah, it could be a high scoring draw up at Stamford Bridge. Guys, it's been great to have you on. We'll talk again here soon. Got a lot of big fixtures coming up the next couple weeks. So until then, follow us on X, and we'll see you next week.